Hey guys, just thank you to whoever's watching this. I just wanted to come on here and just kind of informally demo and present this application that I've just kind of been working on as a side project. So I called my application weightlifting log. So kind of to start off this presentation, I kind of wanted to just talk about the problem that I had and what was my source of inspiration for creating this application. For a while, my wife and I had been doing these kind of somewhat consistent, somewhat inconsistent workouts, and that was great. That was working for a while. But then we went on a week-long vacation. Thanksgiving hit, Christmas hit. I ate way too much food, and I guess the takeaway from that was I was just left with a few more pounds on my body than I was really comfortable with. I told myself, you know what, I'm going to get a gym membership. I'm going to start lifting weights again. Lifting weights is something that I enjoy doing as a workout. I've done it throughout high school, college, and the with lifting weights is like this idea of progressive overload. And so what progressive overload is this concept of putting more weights, lifting more weight each time you work out. And so each time you work out, you're getting stronger, and progressively over time, you will end up getting results. And so what I'd been doing was, as you can see on the screen, I just kind of been tracking my workouts and the weight that I was doing each day on my notes app. And this worked for a while. It allowed me to see what I'd been doing previously so that I knew how much more weight to add next time I came to the gym. But overall, I just felt this current method of tracking my progress was insufficient due to the fact that, I had no really ability to see just how much I had progressed on this lift, or really the ability to store any historical data at all. I was just able to see the most previous version. And so the solution to that was, my idea was to create a mobile first web application that allows me to log my lifts and visualize my progression. All right, so for some of the product requirements that I set for myself for this project was, I knew this application had to be mobile first so that I could actually use this while I'm at the gym. I can, sign into my website, interact with my data, and actually store my lifts and have that interact with my database. So UI had to, not only allow me to view it, but to actually interact with it. I knew I had to have some sort of database set up to store my data, as well as having some sort of middleware or API to connect my front end to my database. So moving into the tech stack that I use. So for the front end, I use React.js. It's just a popular JavaScript library / framework that allowed me to create the visual components for this application. For my database, I use PostgreSQL, which is one of the largest open source databases. For my middleware, I use Node.js just because it's something that I never worked with before, and I just kind of wanted to challenge myself in that sense. And to actually host the application, I use Heroku. So moving into the demo. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be demoing it on a full screen, but I'll show you later what it would look like on a smartphone. So as you can see, the kind of the landing page is, select which workout you want to do. So for me, I have a push day, a pull day, and a leg day. So I'll go into a push day here. And so the way this application is set up is a user creates a workout, and a workout holds X amount of lifts. And so as you can see here for my push day, I have tricep pull downs, deltoid flies, bench press, all that good stuff. And so how this works is I can just come in here between my sets while I'm actually at the gym. Let's say, I up my weight from 25 pounds to 30 pounds. And notes, I felt really strong today. What I can do is just notice this light alerts me or the user while I'm at the gym that this workout has not been saved yet. Save tricep pull down. And, kind of what's happening behind the scenes here is when I click this function, a function is triggered that tells my API to update my database. And then if that's successful, I'll get a successful response. And then I know to render this little icon green just so that I know, hey, everything worked. So that actually allows me to store my data. Kind of the cool part with this application, the part that I wanted to see, see my progression, is found on this page. So as you can see, I don't have a ton of data right now just because I just finished this application, but it hosts graphs for all of my lifts. So you can see I have a gradual progression throughout some of these. I kind of skimped out the other day and actually looks like I lifted less weight that day. But anyways, as you can see, what I did here was I multiplied the sets times the reps times the weight that I lifted that day. And then that kind of ends me up with this total weight lifted on this lift so on the 7th, I lifted 3,500, and then just yesterday, I lifted 3,625. So, 5 sets of 5, that math adds up. Anyways, so this app is not super complex, but it really wasn't designed to be. It was just designed to solve this problem that I had. So to move on to some of the challenges that I had with this project was hosting with Heroku. So Heroku is not a tool that I had ever used before. I had hosted like a static website on Netlify, which is another hosting site. And that was pretty simple, but Heroku was a little bit different since you had to have your scripts set up in a way that would interact with Heroku, as well as, having your database set up through Heroku. And so kind of that challenge was just resolved by watching a ton of videos and reading a ton of documentation on how to actually do that. And then probably the biggest challenge that I had making this application was just taking this idea that I had and then actually fine tuning and figuring out what all moving pieces I need to have. What technology requirements do I need to use? What is required by the technology that I need to use, really. So a big headache and probably the biggest source of frustration with this project for me was actually the database. And the story with that is that I was familiar with SQL. I like using SQL. I'm okay at it. I'm pretty good. And so something I was comfortable with. And so I'd used at first Microsoft SQL Server, and I had designed a scheme of my database. I had set up my relations, my tables, added in some test data to interact with, to actually display stuff while I'm testing out and building out the UI. And that was working great locally. I'd configured it to connect with my Node server. And when I actually went to deploy it, I found out that in order for a Heroku application to interact with Microsoft SQL Server, I would have to pay like $15 a month, which I wanted this project to be completely free. So I knew I had to swap databases somehow. And so, I landed on PostgreSQL or PostgreSQL just because it was something popular. It was new to me. I wanted to learn it. But I guess the biggest reason, honestly, was that it was one of the databases that Heroku supported, and it gave me the biggest or the largest amount of a free data space. So that's kind of how I landed on that. And anyways, so that being said, I had re-implemented my database on my local server of Heroku, local server of PostgreSQL, and I got that configured with my API, and that all working great again. So I went to redeploy again, only to find out that Heroku doesn't actually interact with a local server that you have, but they allow you to use their Heroku Postgres kind of database service, or it's like an add-on feature that you can add on to your application once it's deployed, and I guess your project. And so what that was, they actually wanted me to use a database that they themselves had spun up on one of Amazon's platforms, Amazon Web Services platforms. And anyways, so all that being said, I had to rework the database like 3 times for this project. And that was a little bit frustrating, but I think that probably taught me the biggest takeaway from this project was just that as an engineer and as a developer, it's really easy to just kind of get in this zone where all you want to do is build. Like you like, oh man, I have this great idea. I want to go build it out. And like that, I think that energy and that spirit is great, but I think it can tend to lead towards unrefined ideas, and just leads to situations where you have to rework your database 3 times, at least in my case. And so I think, in the future, another or an idea that I can apply to future projects is just, kind of avoiding jumping straight into that, and then actually sit down and figure out, all the infrastructure that I first have to set up, figure out which pieces of technology I actually want to use for this application, what is actually going to be the best for this application, um, and then, figure out, okay, is this actually going to support my database, and to avoid as much rework as possible. Because that rework probably added like 2 or 3 days to this entire project. And so anyways, all that being said, I had fun making this. Thank you for watching this. It's on my GitHub if you want to go see my source code. And yeah, just thank you so much.